Toni Braxton has always been more than just a voice on stage. She wasn't just carrying a microphone, she was shouldering the weight of her entire family. For years, she was the backbone, the foundation that held everything up, quietly supporting everyone around her while they enjoyed the perks of her success. From the very beginning, Toni was the one who made it happen, all while enduring immense personal struggle. Behind the glamorous performances, the chart-topping songs, and the red carpet smiles, there was a woman who was breaking down, emotionally and physically, since childhood. Life forced her to grow up fast, to hustle harder, and to step into the role of protector. While the rest of the Braxton family sat in the spotlight, reaping the rewards of Toni's hard work, she was carrying the emotional and financial load on her shoulders without asking for recognition. She was out there giving her all to the world, performing on stage, while also being the glue that held the family together, acting as the provider, the peacekeeper, and the protector. Now she's done playing the role of the quiet, selfless one. Her sister Tracy once said to her, "Toni, when you make it, you'll be able to help us. Come on." That was always in Toni's mind, and she tried to honor it, but the responsibility that came with it was overwhelming. In the end, Toni carries not just the weight of her career, but the emotional burden of being everything for everyone. And though she tried to carry it with grace, she has reached her limit. The Braxton family grew so accustomed to relying on Toni that they forgot she was human too. While they leaned on her for everything, they neglected to recognize her breaking point. She's had enough, and now she's calling it out, especially when it comes to Trina and Tanda. Toni accuses them of taking from her, not just her time and energy, but robbing her of the small piece of peace she had left. And through it all, they still made her feel like she wasn't doing enough. That's not just disrespect, it's a betrayal. Money can't heal that kind of wound. While the world cheered for their apparent sisterly bond, Toni was quietly suffocating. She was the one feeding, housing, and holding everything together for the family, and yet, no one bothered to check if she was even okay. Toni's childhood was marred by responsibility that no child should have to bear. Around 13 or 14, her mother had a terrible accident and was bedridden for a long time. With her dad working and trying to make ends meet for a family of 6, Toni became the surrogate parent, stepping into a role that no one expected her to fill. There's so much to unpack here, so take a moment because the full story is about to unfold. Now that the Braxtons are back in the spotlight, things are messier than ever. On the surface, Toni had it all: the voice, the awards, the undeniable glow. She was the it girl. But behind the accolades and the glamorous red carpet appearances, Toni was miserable. She genuinely hated her life behind the scenes, even as she was celebrated by fans for her success. Before we dive deeper into her journey, let's set the record straight. Toni Braxton is more than just a singer. She's music royalty. Without her, where would the landscape of R&B be? Long before many even knew what R&B was, Toni was already stacking up Grammys, laying the groundwork for a genre that would shape music history. So let's not forget the real legacy she's built, one that goes far beyond the surface. Toni Braxton didn't just dominate the charts, she owned them, effortlessly commanding attention on red carpets as if it were second nature. But behind the public persona of a superstar, she was also playing the role of mother, manager, and the financial lifeline for a family that treated her success like a shared group effort. While people admired her artistry, the truth is, Toni Braxton is not just an artist. She's a full-blown legend. 7 Grammys, over 70 million records sold, and a voice so captivating it could move you to tears, whether you were in a nightclub or sitting in church. And yet, despite all of her accomplishments, what did she truly have to show for it? Fame came at a heavy price, and Toni paid it in full. There are people who have criticized her overspending, making it seem like it was the reason for her financial struggles. Some may say she knew the money was coming in but still spent beyond her means. Toni has been transparent about it, acknowledging that at one point, her finances were mixed with everyone else's. It was a mistake, but one rooted in trying to carry too much for too long. Toni's story begins in Severna Park, Maryland, where a family of 6 lived in a house too small to hold the big dreams of their ambitious mother. Toni, being the eldest, always felt the weight of responsibility. When her mother had a terrible accident and was hospitalized for months, Toni's childhood didn't just change, it disappeared. She had to become the mother, the cook, the caretaker, and the one keeping everything together while her dad worked tirelessly just to make ends meet. Before she even had the chance to enjoy being a child, Toni was already out there securing her future. When Toni Braxton skyrocketed to fame in the 90s, dominating the airwaves with hits like Unbreak My Heart and Breathe Again, one might think her family would be celebrating her success. But no, instead of throwing her the support she deserved, her own sisters allegedly started treating her like a walking ATM. Toni now admits that part of this was her own doing. She allowed her finances to become entangled with everyone else's, taking on responsibilities that went far beyond what was necessary. Over the years, Toni has been open about the toll this has taken on her, both emotionally and financially. It wasn't just about carrying the Braxton name, it was about carrying the Braxton bills. From car payments to rent, Toni was the one who held it all together while still expected to be everything for everyone. The reality behind her fame is one of constant sacrifice, and Toni is finally ready to call it what it is: the price of fame and the weight of unrecognized responsibility. Mini Toni Braxton's story At this stage in her life, Toni was fed up. The strain of her family's behavior had exhausted her. What once began as a private heartbreak, something Toni dealt with quietly, was now opening up to the world. Secrets, lies, and years of unresolved drama within the Braxton family were finally coming to light. Tamar, ever the perceptive one, had seen it coming years ago. She noticed the signs and even predicted the fallout. But now, the truth had erupted, and it was nothing short of ugly. Toni's world, for all the fame and glory it seemed to offer, was a storm of emotional, financial, and physical chaos. Behind the public success of being a global icon, she was living in survival mode. While fighting to stay on top, she was also shouldering the weight of everything that came with being the family's provider, protector, and the one holding it, all together. It wasn't just a little rain. When it rained in Toni Braxton's world, it poured. Toni Braxton's journey is one of immense talent, but also deep struggle, and the disrespect she faced during her darkest times is hard to put into words. People played in her face, acting like everything was fine, when she was quietly battling in the background. Despite her monumental success, with over 170 million records sold, she was not living the lavish life people assumed she was. Why? Because for every album she sold, Toni earned a mere 35 cents. Yes, you read that correctly, just 35 cents per album. While fans were blasting her iconic hits, Toni was scraping by, basically feeding an entire record label while her own bank account was empty. Imagine being the face of success, the voice, behind a generation's soundtrack, and still struggling to make ends meet. When Toni finally took a stand, suing her label in 1998 for the way they exploited her, the result was even more crushing. Just 8 weeks later, she had to file for bankruptcy. It wasn't because she was splurging on extravagant luxuries. It was because she was locked into a predatory contract that required her to pay back everything. Travel expenses, studio time, outfits, music videos, you name it, she had to cover. It out of her own pocket, of her own check. Toni Braxton was out here financing her own fame and still ended up with nothing to show for it. She was paying for her success, and then forced to pay it all back like some twisted loop with no reward. But people didn't even realize how deep it went until that infamous interview with Oprah. And let's just say it was a mess. You think a queen like Oprah would show some love to another queen in crisis, right? Nope. Instead, Oprah sat Toni down and hit her with the coldest, most condescending tone like, "How can you be famous?" And Toni Braxton's journey was a whirlwind of highs and lows. And one of the lowest points came during her infamous interview with Oprah. Expecting understanding, Toni walked in hoping to be heard, but the challenges kept coming. In 2010, just when it seemed like Toni might finally get a break, life hit her hard again. She was diagnosed with microvascular angina and lupus, two serious conditions that forced her to cancel a highly anticipated Las Vegas residency. To make matters worse, her insurance didn't cover the medical costs, meaning Toni had to pay for everything out of her own pocket. From stage design to band salaries to hotel rooms, the financial burden was staggering. And just like that, she found herself filing for bankruptcy again, losing everything she had worked so hard to build. Despite the relentless setbacks, Toni's resilience remained unwavering. But in the midst of it all, she learned the importance of cherishing the time she had, especially after the loss of someone close to her. Every morning, she had to remind herself that the person she lost had been there for 50 years, and now it was about holding on to those memories with gratitude. Life wasn't easy, but she had learned to smile, to focus on the good, and to always be kind, especially to those closest to her. After all, sisters fight, but at the end of the day, they always stand together. Just when it seemed like Toni Braxton couldn't catch a break, the IRS and the California Franchise Tax Board showed up like an unexpected storm, demanding their share of her earnings. No warning, no invitation, just a heavy-handed legal blow. According to court documents leaked to the gossip blogs on December 4th, right before the new year, the IRS slapped a lien on Toni, claiming she owed a staggering $340,252.99 in back taxes for 2017. But that wasn't all. A few days later, the California Franchise Tax Board jumped in, adding another lien for $116,154.64. This brought her total tax debt to a jaw-dropping $476,476.63. And both the IRS and the state made it clear: pay up or lose your property. So how does a global icon, still touring, still effortlessly glamorous, and still making money, end up buried under debt time and time again? According to insiders, the truth runs deeper than just bad deals with labels or the weight of her health battles. Toni wasn't just dealing with her own struggles. She was carrying the entire Braxton family on her back. This meant covering bills, supporting family members, and carrying an emotional load so heavy that it became suffocating. And it didn't end there. Towanda finally tied the knot with her longtime partner, Sean Hall, after 9 years together. Toni and Trina showed up as bridesmaids, but guess who was nowhere to be found? Tamar. Not even a seat at the table for her. It was clear then, sides were being taken, and the division was obvious. The tension wasn't just brewing behind closed doors, it was spilling over into their reality show too. At one point, Towanda was asked how she felt about not having access to Tamar. Before she could respond, Tamar cut in, saying, "Towanda just doesn't care about me." Ouch. Tamar claims she's always the one reaching out, while Towanda only cares when the cameras are rolling. But Towanda didn't hold back. In typical Towanda fashion, she responded with that cool, calm, but cutting energy. Her answer? "I don't pour into certain vibes anymore." Translation: she's done investing her energy into Tamar's drama. She doubled down too, saying her focus now was on her home, her kids, and her man. No room for sister drama, just tunnel vision on her own life. Now here's the twist. Towanda's always been known as the level-headed one, the calm presence in the group. But lately, it's feeling like she's playing the long game. Word is she leaned on Toni a lot during her divorce, especially when her finances were shaky. And while supporting your sister during tough times is normal, Toni's recent moves make it seem less like support and more like she's been used. Now, Toni's looking around, wondering, "I was there for you, but where were you when I needed someone?" Fans online are diving into the drama, picking sides, and throwing around theories. Some believe Towanda's had issues with Tamar for a long time, while others suspect it's jealousy over Tamar's career. One thing is for sure, this isn't just a squabble between two sisters anymore. This family breakdown is affecting everyone, and especially Toni. For years, she's been the glue holding everything together, the breadwinner, the one keeping it all afloat. But now she's pulling away, and it's starting to look like all the emotional chaos is taking a toll on her health, too. One fan summed it up perfectly. "We didn't want the Braxtons back just to see them arguing nonstop. We want to see them loving each other." And honestly, that's what they all deserve. "We need another," chimed in. "Sometimes you just need a long break from your family and they sound like they need one bad." But the comment that really struck a nerve Toni is owed so much in so many ways. And then came this bombshell of this wasn't just therapy. It was more like being trapped in a pressure cooker. And then, Toni dropped a line that broke everyone's heart. "I don't want to be the strong one anymore." That simple sentence struck a deep chord with so many, particularly those who have always been the rock, the firstborns, the go-to people in their families. It wasn't just words. It was a cry for peace, for rest, for someone else to finally carry the weight for once. Tamar, in contrast, seems to be on a path of healing, looking ahead and trying to move forward, but Tawanda's silence speaks volumes. And now, with Tracy gone, it feels like Toni is waking up to a harsh truth. Time keeps moving, and when it runs out, there's no fixing what's broken. But let's be clear, this isn't just another case of celebrity drama or a search for fame, likes, or reality show ratings. This is about a woman who poured everything, her heart, her money, her energy, into her family and career, and after everything, finally said, "I'm done." She's exhausted, she's tired, but just when it seemed like things couldn't get any more complex, Tamar threw the biggest curveball of all. Word on the street is that she brought their niece, Ashley Braxton, into the new season of Braxton Family Values. And if you thought the family drama was intense before, just wait, it's about to get even messier. This isn't just any regular niece situation either. Ashley Braxton has a history with the family that completely turned their world upside down. When Ashley was only 16, she came forward with a story that rocked the foundation of the Braxton clan. She accused Trina's then-husband, Gabe, of behaving inappropriately with her. We're talking about a grown man texting a teenage girl in ways that were nothing short of disturbing. Ashley didn't stay quiet. She did the right thing, told her parents, and they in turn told Trina. Initially, Trina stood by her niece, showing love and support, apologizing for what had happened, and standing firmly with Ashley. But what followed was far from simple. At first, it seemed like the Braxton family was going to stand united behind Ashley. But that support didn't last long. It slowly faded into silence, followed by sidelong glances, and eventually turned into blame. Rumor has it that Trina, instead of rallying around her niece, began to tell others that Ashley should have known better, implying that somehow, Ashley was at fault. The worst part? Some even suggested Trina thought something physical had happened between Ashley and Gabe, and she shifted the blame onto her. Let that sink in for a moment. A 16-year-old girl is preyed upon by a grown man, and she ends up being cast as the villain in her own story. Trina cut her off completely, stopped reaching out,